Hey guys, it's Malthus here once again, and I wanted to make a follow-up video on the Chieftain Xoph item character, using the Xoph bow and the Xoph amulet, and utilizing it with whatever skill you really want. It doesn't matter too much. I chose split arrow and a bit of Vol burning arrow action, some actual burning arrow action too, some blast rain mixed in as well, but you can use just about everything. The basis for the character was to basically clear maps well and take care of breaches, and it's done that pretty damn well. So breaches have been very nicely ignited, prolift, farmed, and it's pretty nice for clearing maps in general. Managed to make it all the way up to tier 15 maps and had an attempt at a tier 16 map, but as expected that did not go terribly well because the boss fights just don't go too well when you can't one-shot things with the way I've built the character, in that he's kind of slow and hits very hard once, more or less. So don't expect to take this character through to Shaper, tier 16s, or Uber Series because a lot of things in Uber can't be ignited, but for map clearing, it's a pretty cheap and effective character, and I got to level 90 without too many troubles playing this character. Just about every single map type I could have done, and breaches were really nice to farm as well. So I actually enjoyed playing the character, and for what it is, it's rather cheap and rather effective. I got to about level 90 and just enjoyed the entire mapping process, and I would keep mapping if I thoroughly still enjoyed mapping at the end game with no real tangible goal in mind, but that's not particularly for me because it's still very early in the league and I still have quite a lot of builds I want to get to and try out, and I'm definitely moving on from here on out to go to the next build, hopefully one that's a bit more Shaper and Guardian viable, since I've played one now that's been very nice for mapping in general, and just a fun sort of sidetrack build, which didn't perform all that great against bosses. Now that's not to say this sort of combo can't work well against bosses, it's probably just the one that I built wasn't that amazing. If you went more of an elementalist based, I think, and just pure sort of fire elemental damage and prolift, maybe even non-crit with elemental overload, you'd probably have better success for the burn damage, but this was more or less supposed to be kind of a sturdy character just for map clearing and fun in general. You could also potentially go like, a raider or a ranger of some sort, a deadeye, and that would be a lot more fun for bosses too, because you'd be a lot faster and have much better attack speeds. Now, the last thing I really want to show you here was, it's kind of a bad recording because my computer crashed while streaming, so I didn't actually save this file, meaning I have to re-record it over the top of the VOD. In any case, this was a double Beyond Sea Witch map, Wasteland, had vulnerability, shocked ground, some other nonsense. And as you can see, double beyonding a map with breaches and shit is actually still pretty intense these days, at least with sea witches. And I happened to spawn like 3 bosses at once and then an Xoph and run into a corner, which was not the right move. But that said, I did come back in and give Xoph just a bit of my burn prolift action and all that. He is kind of a tough fight still, depending on the map mods and all that, and how well your character can handle it. Valpact typically really does help take care of Xoph, and if you got a minus max roll on the map, it's pretty damn hard to overcome him. That said, only managed to die once on this entire map, had something like 20-25 Beyond bosses, so it's pretty crazy, and the build did take care of all the Beyond bosses pretty efficiently. The prolift, while my Ignite and Prolift wasn't stacked that huge overall for heavy single targets, just for general map clearing and for certain like Beyond bosses and stuff, the Ignite was still doing quite a lot of work, and as you can tell, it's really not that bad at all. It's just when you come across the really big single targets, like your tier 16 bosses, and Shaper, for example, the burn probably wouldn't be that substantial. So I'm still not entirely sure I can fully recommend this character, because typically when I recommend a character I want it to be able to do every sort of content in the game, and this will definitely struggle with your tier 16 bosses. When you get a 6 link it'll probably be more manageable, but I never got to that stage, so I'm only on a 5 link. And I don't think it'll be very good for Uber Series at all, because some of those bosses are Ignite immune and it's just kind of too slow on the boss spectrum, whereas the trash itself is absolutely amazing, and that was very easy to take care of. The character did get to level 90 in the end. You can scale it up to higher life if you feel you need to, and rearrange quite a lot of things in general, but we built around a Xoph's Nurture over here, which, as I mentioned, converts half your damage to fire, and then Avatar of Fire from the amulet converts the other half. In total, the character has something like 40%, yeah, something like 40% fire penetration on top of the fire penetration gem, so LE resists typically aren't too problematic, except for your burn portion of the damage. So that was basically the idea behind the character. Get a lot of fire penetration from around here, 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 and here. And it might just give you an idea of something else you can do in the future yourself, but this is what I came up with, and it was just good for mapping. So if you want to if you still think it's something you want to do, it is pretty cheap and very achievable to get up and running. Nothing here is terribly expensive, like the bow, the chest, that's all really cheap stuff. The quiver, that's really cheap, that was really cheap, these are really cheap, that was pretty cheap. The only expensive thing I'm currently wearing, I'd say, is this ring, and that cost me 30 chaos. Everything else I feel is very manageable. And like I said, Split Arrow I felt was my favorite skill to clear with. You can play around with other things. I tried Tornado Shot, I tried Lightning Arrow, I tried Blast Rain. They're all pretty good, and they all clear fairly well too. But for me, Split Arrow worked the best, and I enjoyed that the most. Like I did mention, use a Lionized Fall to convert some of this shit into crit and bow crit, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the right way to build it. You might not go crit and just scale pure projectile damage or elemental and fire damage by going further up here, or being an elementalist, or being a Deadeye or a raider. There are certainly different ways to build this character. One other thing I'll mention is Iron Grip. I took that because I have a bowl load of strength, and that's about 100% extra proj damage, and also that brings me to the quiver. You could also use a drill neck instead of this, because drill neck does give you something like 60% projectile damage based off of the pierce from our chest and the pierce on the quiver itself. And projectile damage double dips for your burn as well, so it would kind of increase our burn a good bit, but I needed my quiver for accuracy at this stage, and I wasn't willing to change gear at this point. So the last thing I'll say, if you're going to try and build something like this, bear in mind that your jewels, you do mostly want projectile damage and fire damage. So a jewel like this one has fire damage and projectile damage. Those are the things you're looking for, because those damages double dip. They will apply to the initial hit from your attack, and then also increase the burn damage from your attack too. And that's basically how you scale burn damage in this game. In any case, that's pretty much all I'll say about this character. Try and keep it short and sweet. If you like what you saw, just for mapping, feel free to try it. I wouldn't really recommend it, but entirely up to you guys. So thank you very much for watching, and see you guys next time.